I'm sitting here with, you have many titles, like street photographer, documentary photographer, philosopher, what else?
Polemicist, writer, poet,
So
revolutionary.
So you're married to a lot of women, or
No.
polemicist?
No. Oh, no. That's polygamous.
Ah.
Polemicist is someone who is.
I know that.
Okay.
I'm just joking.
Sorry.
Yeah, some humor, you know. Poet, you said?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, I've noticed on your website, you're a bit of a wordsmith. Oh, this is Chuck Jines
Hello, everybody.
of Chicago, Illinois. Right?
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, I noticed you're a bit of a wordsmith, you know, for visiting on the website. And so, is that a part of kind of your thing? Is that a big part of
Oh yeah.
your creativity?
Sure. My books, especially, I haven't published them yet. I'm working on 3 books. All of them are a little bit different than your average photo book, in that I include a lot of my prose, a lot more words than your normal traditional photo book.
Right. And man, I mean, well, I guess to start, I met you last year. Prior to that, I think I was watching some John Free videos, street photography videos, and I said, hey, you know, John, if you ever come to Chicago or St. Louis, whatever, I want to come to your workshop. And so I guess you had been in contact with John Free, right? And saw my post, and you inboxed me on YouTube. I almost always ignore those, you know, those inboxes from YouTube, but
Right.
you know, I saw yours and it seemed very specific. I'm like, okay. And you know, a few months later, it was the workshop. We actually did an actual workshop, but then you invited us out again afterwards. You know, it was like
After the workshop.
Yeah, after the workshop, it was like, hey, you guys, and they came along.
Because I knew you guys had come all the way from St. Louis.
You know,
Right.
yeah, and it was like, why don't you come hang out? And I have to say, I don't mean to be, you know, dramatic, but I mean, that couple of hours changed my life.
Wow.
It was that powerful being with you and listening to you speak and how passionate you were about photography. I've never heard of it in that way. It almost seemed like you weren't just talking about photography. It was like you were talking about humanity, you know, and it impacted me so much that prior to that, I was shooting pretty much every day on my lunch break, and it impacted me so much that I could barely take a picture again. I felt like, if I take this picture, what does it mean? You know, it has to have meaning, it has to have something. And I mean, almost for a year, I didn't even want to do street photography. I was afraid to, because I felt like, you know, I don't want to be misunderstood. I want it to have some type of power and meaning. And since then, every shoot I've done, you know, I've tried to make it have purpose. And I know I'm talking a lot, but I've been wanting to say this to you for a year.
Wow, man, that's
You know, I've been wanting to send it to you on Facebook, and I was like, no, it's just too much to type. I'll just have to meet him again one day, and this is the day. And I've been wanting to say that forever, man. So I thank you for taking that time out to talk to us and show us everything.
See, and that's, you know what keeps me going is what you just did.
Yeah.
You know, if you follow me, you know that I'm controversial.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of people that hate me.
Right.
You know, and that's fine. You know, it comes with the territory. But it can get overwhelming sometimes when you have that many people that are at odds with you.
Right.
And so those little gems, what you just said, I can't tell you how much that means to me, because that's the fuel that keeps me going. Because I'm not looking for a bunch of fans.
Right.
I'm just looking for a couple of people.
Right.
You know, that's it.
Well, you know, and I can understand, you know, where you know, the controversy. I can understand where that comes from, but you say, you know, people may not like you. that's understandable. But if they met you and they spent the time with you like I did, they would totally understand where you're coming from. It may come off as harsh when you say the things. You have to follow my Facebook to see some of the.
I'm blunt.
Yeah, you kind of eased into a situation recently. You know, you were talking about a street photographer, and you didn't name them. And it kind of built up over a couple of weeks until it just exploded, and you had to name drop.
Well, you know.
But it was funny. It was true.
Oh, the one emperor's not wearing any clothes? Was that the?
Yeah, yeah. And it was true though, you know. And you speak the truth, and you know the old saying, the truth hurts. But your photography really shows the truth, and that's what I mean by, you know. I just don't recall ever seeing that type of purpose in photography. You know, it's not necessarily street photography as much as it is documentary photography. I was surprised when we went over by the men's hotel.
Oh, on Clark Street there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We were over there. It was a lot of, I guess, homeless guys or substance abuse type people over there, and you started speaking to them in your interaction. You knew it. You knew these people. You knew them by names. They knew you, and it wasn't like you were just walking by blasting away pictures of people. You had a conversation, and I mean, is that an important part
Absolutely.
of your process?
Me and Paul were just walking around, and you know, we just did, and he helped me record a video about, you know, overcoming fear of street photography. And what I'm trying to tell people, at least my experience, is it has nothing to do with people. First of all, you're afraid of your camera. Mm-hmm. You're not afraid of people. You're afraid of camera. You're afraid I don't know this area. Mm-hmm. These are, and a lot of people don't stop to think, but if they trace their fear back, they're going to come to that. Okay, so we just met a man. Obviously, he was homeless, and we had a brief. I always say hello or good morning to homeless people, and of course he said something back, and then he asked me for some spare change, and I said, I'll give you $1 for a portrait. Right? And I took the guy's photo, but I won't ever publish that photo.
Right.
I have hundreds of photos that you will never see.
Right.
Because they're staged. They're
right.
That's not a candid photograph, right? So why would I take this guy's photograph with no intention of ever publishing the sucker and pay the guy $1 for it? Mm-hmm. Why would I do that? Well, first of all, I actually care about people, but the other thing is I try to build street credit. Yeah. Right? And how are you gonna end up in a drug dealer's den with a bunch of cameras hanging around your neck? Or how are you gonna hang out on a corner as a white guy on 63rd and Cottage Grove? Right. How are you gonna go into a heroin den with a camera? How do you do that if you don't have trust with people?
So, even though, like you said, you're not using that picture, that's kind of just an icebreaker.
Yeah, he'll remember me next time if I see him.
Right, and he knows you as the guy with the camera.
He's the guy who takes photos.
And now you're kind of a friend in a way.
Exactly.
You know, or it's opening up that friendship.
Exactly.
And so, and again, the stage I saw in the friendship, I mean, again, you knew these guys who we saw that day, you know, and I don't know if you remember exactly what happened, but there were two guys, and it was one guy first, and he was just talking to you, and he was like, he was about to go meet some girl down the street, and another guy came up, and he was like, hey man, let me get some of your beer. And so he shared the beer with him, and I guess the guy, he killed the original owner's beer, you know.
It must have been Teddy.
Yeah, he killed it, and he's like, hey man, what are you doing? And Paul and I were sitting there, we were, you know, Paul was obviously kind of shook up, you know, and I was a little uncomfortable myself, but I had, you know, enough courage to hurry up and snap a picture. So I snapped that picture right then. And I remember saying, like, hey man, you better watch out. These guys, you know, you gotta watch it around these guys. But And so he was like, hey man, you got my beer. And then after that, he pulled out like a razor or something, like a box cutter.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Pulled out like a box cutter. You know, it got really serious. Like things escalated rather quickly, and then they just de-escalated kind of quickly too. You know, but I remember looking at you and seeing like, this is just everyday kind of thing. Like this is kind of light actually, you know. And I said, okay, there's something missing in my own photography. I want that. I want to feel that way when I'm taking pictures of people. You know, I don't want to go and just snipe a homeless guy, you know, laying on the ground for nothing. You know, just take that picture. What does that mean? It means nothing.
What is the desire to do that even?
What is the desire? In my mind, I would say is to document the way the world is now, like the sadness of the world.
What is it? Because everybody, I have meetup groups, okay, and I've led thousands of people on photo tours, literally. And it's just, and a lot of them are well-to-do, upper middle class people. And it's just, what is this morbid curiosity with homeless people is what I was asking.
So
it's almost something instinctual.
It's almost like people treat homeless people as if they're these faraway people, like they've just crossed over to the other side of the world, and they're these tribal people when they're not, you know. But it's like that's what street photography seems to be. And there was a story. Oh my goodness, I'm gonna have to put it like in the comments. But there was a story about something like the white photography or white street photography, and they said exactly that about it's basically like a nature trip, you know. A lot of the
squirrel
time,
hunting is what I call it.
Like you said, you know, it's these well-to-do people who want to do street photography. And it's kind of like a little safari, exactly.
And which is the worst thing.
Right.
Like me, a white guy going into the black neighborhood.
Right.
The last thing you want to do is like, I'm here to, you know, on safari.
Right.
Oh my God.
Right.
I mean, you can't be like that.
So actually, you mentioned something about meetups. So I'm a member of the Chicago Street Photography Meetup group that you lead, and every morning I wake up to some type of announcement. How do you find the time to do meetups and shoot your own work? I just don't see how it's even possible.
I weave the two things together. For example, I knew that I was coming to St. Louis today, right? So I didn't have to, but I scheduled a meetup outing because I have a St. Louis street photography meetup group as well. I think they got like 70 members, something like that. So anyways, what I was coming here to do is get everything ready for my workshop in June. Right, so I wove a meetup group into it. A lot of people say that. There's like another meetup group, a digital meetup group. I think they have 5 facilitators at that meetup, and they don't have half the meetups that I have.
Right.
But I just incorporate things. Like if I'm going to go down on Tuesdays and Thursdays downtown, those are my days to go out and shoot. I'll schedule a couple things at lunch for the other people, and then I'll go back to what I'm doing. So I leave it in there.
So it's kind of like so you said at lunch, so it's like a 1 hour kind of meetup just around lunchtime for people who work downtown or whatever. Exactly. They can come out.
And we do little photo walks.
That's cool, man. That's cool. So lately you've been kind of tossing out some information about a new kind of big project that you're working on. And I know you may not be able to talk about it too much, but I know you've been doing the is it Poison Brown?
Yeah, heroin.
About heroin addiction, and you've recently got some interest from the BBC.
Yeah.
And so, where are you at in that? Well, how did that all come to be?
Oh wow, that turned into a deal with the Daily Mail, with the Sun. I sold that story at least 5 times to European deals, and I also signed a year-long contract with, I can't remember what the name of the media company is, but I've been selling little stories to them, and then they distribute it. And that's why you asked me about this next project. I'm not sure if I'm going to do the project. I'm kind of, because it's very dangerous. It's not a joke.
Right.
I could get killed.
Right.
You know, and so, you know,
So,
I'll probably end up doing the project. My wife is worried about it, but you know.
well, would you say it's one of those high risk, high reward type situations? Yeah. Not necessarily a monetary high reward, but just that.
Well, I think it needs to be, you know, I want to do things that, and I want to do things in a way that haven't been done before, okay? For example, before I did the heroin project, I searched and searched and searched online to see who has done heroin projects, right? Because I don't want to beat a dead horse.
Right.
Come to find out that very few people have completed heroin projects, is what I found out. There was a guy that started one, ended up getting hooked on the stuff himself.
Wow.
So that never got completed.
Wow.
There was another guy that got so depressed doing it that he kind of petered out on it.
Okay.
Then I found some, like if you look online, it's called the Ninth Floor.
Okay.
Great project that they did, and I think it's about the 9th floor of a building that were all these heroin addicts, or a few heroin addicts. God, I wish I could remember the photographer's name, but great stuff, but very different than me, totally different. So yeah, I want to do things in a way that hasn't been done. So getting on to now what's going on in Chicago, of course, is the gun violence is absolutely horrific, which affects me. I mean, I can't tell you how many mornings I wake up and cry when you see some 14-year-old girl get a cat. You know, what the hell's going on?
Right.
And what is going on? It's one thing to sit by your desk and view all this, right? It's another thing to now go over to the Roseland ceasefire and sit there and talk with these 14 and 50-year-old kids who are part of the ceasefire, who had their brother killed when they were 12, who were shot themselves when they were 14. You're like, wow, really? You grew up like that?
Yeah.
Wow, that's really going on?
It's crazy.
You know, and wow, that's really going on. Not only is that going on, but that's going on in a large area. You know?
Yeah.
Chicago is primarily a few little pockets where people have money, and then it's various shades of poverty. Right, from very, very poor to working class, lower middle class, which that's where I'm from. I'm bottom, I'm high class poor, which is that lower middle class type of existence. Most people live there. Bruce Gilden said something in a recent video about a new project that he's been working on, and kind of the same reason. I want to photograph the things people don't want to look at. Grit Street is what I do, and Grit Street is about comforting the afflicted and afflicting the comfortable. That's what this is about. I have to shake the trees. I'm an intellectual activist. I want people to think. I want people to know. I don't know if it comes to any good. I don't know if things get better. It's just, can I tell a little story?
Yeah.
Because it's something that happened to me when I was a kid that I'm still on that same quest today. I was born on 69th and Damon, which is South Chicago. And I'm part of the late 1960s white flight. My whole family is from that area, and I remember the white flight as a kid, the whole thing. So when I was about 7 years old, we moved out of there, and I really hadn't been exposed to poverty. Okay, I come from upper middle class home. And in 4th grade, we went on a field trip, and we took the Metro train from Tinley Park to downtown Chicago. And because my dad had a car, we never took public transportation. Well, the train went right through the ghetto.
Right.
And I was fixated out the window. I could not take my eyes off of it. I just couldn't comprehend how people lived like that. I mean, it really messed me up. The other thing that struck me is that I was riveted to what's going on out here and how oblivious everybody else in the train was to the plight that was out here. And the same thing, you know, when we would drive down the Dan Ryan and the Robert Taylor homes used to be on the, you know, I'd look and see the oceans of people playing basketball out there, and, you know, my parents would just never look.
So it almost seems like they kind of just wanted to keep their eyes straight, you know, didn't want to look. Like people didn't want to, if I don't see it, it's not there kind of thing.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But it is there.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you not only force yourself to look at it and became interested in, you know.
I want to find out why.
and wondered why and how are people, living like that.
Because you know what? People think that they're good. You know what? They've never been tested, and they confuse that for being good. See, it's real easy to sit in your upper middle class home and say, "Oh, I never stole anything." You've never been hungry. See, I'll tell you a story. There's a brother named Tony that lives on the streets of Chicago that has more moral fortitude than 1,000 people I know with suits. Because this brother has been on the streets for almost 20 years and wants to give me $1. Is honest and is kind. It blows me away, dude.
Wow.
He's my idol.
Wow.
When I think about good people and moral people. You see, and any conversation about photography with me is inevitably going to end up to what we're talking about because I'm not a photographer.
Right.
I really don't care about photography.
But you're great at it.
Well,
Wow. I feel that you're great at it.
some people say that.
And but then there's still so much more power to the photos, and you go to those hard places and you show a lot of those hard things that people don't want to look at. Like you said, like we were just saying, they're sitting on the metro and everybody's just eyes straight, but here you come and you stick a picture in their face and they're forced to look at it, and I think that's good. That's
Sure.
people should be forced to look at
That's
it.
what street photography should do.
And those same people, they may give donations to different causes and everything, and that's good.
Sure.
But it's very safe.
It is that, isn't it?
It's safe to do that from afar, to donate to some cause, by clicking, a button in PayPal. But to go out
Sure.
and actually what you've been doing recently seems to be a bit risky. You say you're heading to the south side of Chicago or to O Block, and you're gonna be down with some of the gangs of Chicago. Where did that all come from? I know you was it someone like from the Alley Boys project? Or
Well, see, that's Eugene Smith.
How did this all
Right.
become?
Eugene Smith has a quote about photography never has no end. You got to be careful with photography.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because it keeps on sucking you in.
Yeah.
Right. So where do you end these projects? Where does the next one begin? Because when you start, I talk about the city revealing itself to people that put their time in. See, if you don't put your time in, she ain't gonna show you.
Right.
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 Because all of this heroin was right there in front of me.
Of course.
It's the same people, it's the same streets, but the city didn't show me, see? I had to put a couple years into those streets before the streets say, "Hey bro, take a look at this." See, then it's boom, and that's how it happens, right? So what happens next? What do you do now? Man, you've done some hardcore heroin stuff. I mean, people haven't even seen my stuff, brother. I haven't even come close to publishing what the stuff that I got. I mean, I got maggots out of people's abscesses, all kinds of really hard stuff.
Right.
But what do you do now? See, as a photographer, you're always looking for your next challenge. You're always, how do you top that? Well, you look around and you live in Chicago. The obvious story is what? The gun violence and the gangs, and it's tied right into the heroin, is it not?
Right.
It's all one thing, really. You could do one big book on it, instead of breaking it up into little ones, because it's one story leads to the other.
So it just kind of naturally segued into.
Right. Now, and here's what me and my wife are saying. Probably shouldn't even say this, but yeah, business decisions that you make. What do you do? You've gotten some notoriety. I've been published internationally with my heroin. I'm not finished with that at all. I got a book coming up. I'm still doing the project. There's other places that want to buy it. I can ride that out.
Right.
You know, I could safely walk up and down State Street and just do street photography now. Could I not?
Yeah.
You know, no, I can't.
So
Because I have to do something, and street photography, boy, I wonder if I'm a street photographer. I said the other day, you know, I'm on all these Facebook groups and everything with all this street photography, and I tell you something, man, if what these people are posting is street photography, then I'm not really interested.
And I was gonna say, it doesn't seem like it to me. I have a hard time calling you a street photographer by today's definition or accepted kind of definition of the word, because what you're doing is not. If you type in street photography on Google, we all know whose site pops up first.
Absolutely.
And what you're doing is far different than what pops up when you type in street photography on Google. And again, it's a lot more powerful. It has a lot more meaning. It's not. They may want to call it street snapshots.
You know what this, I'll just be frank and let people know what I think about this. Here's what happens. Let's say that I want to sell street photography workshops, and of course I do. I mean, that's how I pay my bills, right? If I was just a business dude, I would say, you know what? There's a little artist inside of you just waiting to be born. Oh yeah, you can do this street photography. Street photography is for everybody. Oh, you can't do that? Well, don't worry about that. Just ask. See, here's what happens. See, people can't really do street photography, so they change the definition of what it is to fit their needs, right? Someone made a critical comment of my last video, and to everybody's amazement, I said, he's absolutely right. I agree with him more than all of these comments about how great that video was.
So what did
Let me explain it to you. I did a video on fast action focus. I don't know if you watched that one.
No, I haven't.
Okay. I'm just walking down State Street, just, you know, I don't have any fear. I'll walk up right up into somebody's face and take their photo. And I'll walk and I show people, look, bing, 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 and we just go down the street, right? And everybody loved that video. And then some guy comes in and says, man, that's not good street photography. And I was like, you're right, it's not. What the hell is walking down the street taking random shots of people, man? I mean, seriously, what is that, man? Anybody can do that.
And admittedly, that's one of those things that I was guilty of.
Me too.
And I had to say to myself, what is it? Like, what is the purpose of this?
Exactly.
And does it really have meaning? You know, perhaps it can later, but it's...
You know what you end up having? I mean, I had some people quit my group. You know, someone says, hey, check out I got my new website. I want your honest opinion. Don't ever ask me for my honest opinion if you don't want it, because I'll give it to you.
Yeah.
The guy sends me a link, and he's got 500 what I call street snapshot portraits. That is not a street photography website, man. Those are formal portraits. I can tell you asked most of those people. I mean, you can just see it, man.
Right.
You know, I don't have a whole lot of portraits, but the ones that I do, I mean, you can tell that lady's about to say, fuck you. Right? I didn't ask her anything.
Right.
You know, or the guy that's having that cigarette. If you see that photo, there's an interesting story.
No, he's not. Yeah.
Right? He's speaking, I don't know what language he's talking in. This guy's going off. He's having a fit on the street corner, man, talking in Bulgarian or some language.
And he's already this way as you approach him?
I wait, get all my stuff together, and he sits down to take a drag off that cigarette, and I just walked up and went, pow. But you gotta have some cojones to do that. I mean, this is...
Now, you're not talking about the opening image on your website, are you?
No,
Okay.
no. That was also candid, though.
Okay.
You know, because I don't really believe in asking to take the photographs. I mean, you can. Even Bruce Gilman does that.
Right.
You know. And if you go to my website, you'll notice that I have street portraits and street photography. I'm not saying that that's not legitimate or there can't be worth it in or value in that type of photography. Mm-hmm. It's just that I don't really call it street photography. You know? And I do have some street photography. I just posted a pretty good photo. The guy's prosthetic leg in the wheelchair, and then there's two people walking by. Compositionally, it's a photo that I was happy with. That's street photography, where you're combining elements, multiple elements in the photo, plus it's telling a story. Obviously, you can't see the wheelchair, right? Obviously, it's taken from down here on the ground, but here's the contradiction. Two healthy people walking by with this, so there's a story there, you know? Or the photograph that I have, these are photos that I like myself. It doesn't matter if anybody, I post photos that I like, and if somebody else don't, oh, okay. There's a boot laying on the ground with a Live with Fire Reebok type advertisement on the garbage can, and then the liquor store has a sale on Budweiser. Well, is that not a story? Obviously, this boot did not make it, right? And I wonder what was the obstacle from him living the Adidas dream over here. Right. Well, it's that $10.99 sale on the Budweiser, more than likely, right? So but there was 3 elements there. There's no human, there's no person in it, but to me that's good street photography because you've combined several elements to tell a story.
That's nice. Yeah, and that's also kind of difficult to get that multiple elements thing. I remember that was one of the key points that both you and John Free actually mentioned in the workshop last year, and that's very hard to do. And that's one of those things that kind of made me stop taking so many pictures, is that I didn't feel that they had multiple levels of interest.
Right, exactly.
And so, let me go back to the South Side project that you're kind of now going into. So, are you, have you kind of gotten into that that element, or have you been successful so far with the project as far as?
Sure, I took the BBC down there last week, as a matter of fact.
Okay.
They're going to be doing a radio show.
Okay.
So I had to kind of pave the way for them,
right?
You know, and set up all the contacts and all that.
Yeah. You mentioned a funny, kind of a funny, quick little story about, is it safe for a white guy to be?
Oh, an O-Block?
Yeah. So tell that story.
Oh, I'm outside of a soul food restaurant.
Okay.
And in a very bad neighborhood. You can tell that when there's bars on the service window.
Yeah.
You're in the right place. But I said to this young kid standing there, I said, is it okay? Is it safe for white people to go down to O-Block? He goes, shit. It ain't safe for blue people to go down to O-Block. I mean, a lot of my black friends, Cleek Woods, one of the top street musicians in Chicago, a good friend of mine, he says, man, you're crazy.
I love that story. It's a quick little story, but that's classic.
And it's true. I mean, these are very dangerous places.
It's classic, man. Well, hey, I appreciate you stopping by to talk to me. We can go on and on forever, and I have, I can sit here and listen to you talk all day, but my memory card isn't big enough to record it all. So.
Well, that's cool. Thanks for having me, man.
So. I'd like to ask, is there any photographers that you admire right now?
Oh, yeah.
Old or new?
Yeah.
Classic.
I would say the best street photographer in Chicago is Brian Sokolowski, I think is how you pronounce it.
Okay.
I think it goes by Soko,
okay.
S-O-K-O. We're always at odds, personally, but I always speak highly of Brian's work, even though we don't get along politically. The man's work is...
Awesome.
As far as who I try to in my look and style that I've developed, Eugene Smith is probably the most influential.
Yeah, and I can see that. See, this is gonna start another conversation, but Eugene Smith did the project in Kansas City or
Pittsburgh Pittsburgh Steel Project was the one he never finished.
No, what's the one?
Country Doctor?
I want to say he did some type of heroin or some type of project. Maybe I'm thinking of something.
He did one in Japan on, as a matter of fact, that's what eventually killed him.
I think I'm thinking of Bruce Davison.
Maybe so.
He did a project.
Oh, he might have.
Like a heroin, but maybe not heroin, but some type of...
You know what I noticed about all these projects, though? It seems like everybody, when they do these, even like the Ninth Floor, which is a great project, but It's almost, and there was one other guy that did these photographs of women heroin addicts, but it's like to look at the bright side. Is kind of the, you know, he's got these women pose as if they're models, which is okay and everything. You know what? There is no frickin' bright side to heroin addiction, and that's what my stuff's about. Right. There ain't nothing but maggots out your leg. There ain't nothing but heartache, pain, misery. That's it. There ain't no bright side.
That you had like an audio interview. I think his name is D.
D. Yeah, love-hate relationship.
That said it all. I mean, he worded it perfectly.
Yep.
You have to check that out. That audio interview. Yeah, that was he nailed it. But
yeah, so I'm not looking for fair and balanced or anything like that. You know, Good Street is what it is. So,
how can people see your work? How can they get in touch with you? What's your social network and stuff?
You could check out my website, chuckjines.com, and that will lead you to my Facebook page and anywhere else. I also do Chicago Photo Journal. There's a little blog I have in Chicago. But my workshop information is on there. I do private one-on-ones. I try to schedule one a month, but I got a lady coming in from Singapore on Wednesday. So if you need to schedule a workshop, the other thing I like to advertise about my workshops is that, I tell you, man, there's people out there charging big bucks for these workshops. Yeah. I think it's insane. I think it's ridiculous. I think it's gross. That's just my workshops are $279, and I just don't know what these other guys are going to tell you that I wouldn't. So.
It's worth every single penny.
I'm exhausted. I put my soul in these.
I think you charging that, it's so worth it. It's so beyond worth it to pay that for one of your workshops, because again, not to be taught how to use your camera. I don't know if you ever dabble in any of that stuff,
if you need
but
it.
To have these conversations like we're having now, I think that's so much more powerful than how to snap the picture and how to set the exposure. I think they can get so much more from that, and it's worth so much more than what you're charging to get this information. And again, I thank you for speaking to me at the workshop last year and speaking to me today. And again, thank you for coming, man.
Hey, man. Thanks for coming.
All right.
Peace.
All right.
Cool.